You're tuned into the Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast, brought to you by Zeno Pucks. Here are your hosts, Andy and Brian Matusi.
All right, I know what everybody's wondering. Where the hell have we been for the last 2 weeks? And I want to say that it's almost 100% my fault. Brian went out of town a couple weeks ago, which we told you guys about. Hey, we're probably not going to get a show recorded for this weekend. We'll be back the following weekend. And the following weekend, to keep a long story short, I was golfing, and the beers were flowing like water. So it happens. But now we're into the 2025 Stanley Cup Playoffs. They've been crazy so far. I've enjoyed every second of it. So we're just going to carry on like we didn't miss a beat.
I would also like to accept 0% of the blame for this and offer 100% of it to you.
I will accept 100% of it. This is, again, not your fault because you forewarned everybody, hey, I'm going out of town this weekend. There's not going to be an episode. I didn't do shit. I was just like, hey, I'm going to drop this ball really hard and see how far it rolls. So,
yeah.
Oops. And I apologize. But nevertheless, we are back and it's time to talk playoff hockey.
All right. So, first and foremost, there's a few things we want to get to, but because we've missed so much, we're going to start with the playoff stuff because I feel it's, the most prevalent since we didn't set up the playoffs at all. So we're just going to jump right into it. We'll start out in the Eastern Conference. I just have these on my phone in order, or just the order I typed them up in. So that's the order we're going to go. We're going to start in Toronto and Ottawa series. Leafs jump out to a great 3-0 series lead. A couple overtime games, obviously. Sens pick up the win in Game 4 in overtime on Saturday night to keep their season alive, which I don't think there is any long playoff run in the Senators' future, but for the time being, they are still alive, still fighting. But again, the series will shift back to Toronto for a Game 5 on Tuesday night, I believe. So that series seems to be the most interesting one because although, again, Toronto seems like it's a lock to win this series, it's been closer than the series score would indicate, with 3 of the 4 games being overtimes. The only blowout was Game 1 where the Leafs just absolutely dropped the hammer. But other than that, this has been a great rivalry series. There's been a lot of nastiness to it. And so as somebody who doesn't give a shit about either team, quite frankly, it's been very fascinating to watch these two kind of go at it.
Yeah, I'm going to say one thing that might surprise a lot of people, and that is that I'm actually pulling for Toronto in this series. A couple of reasons. One, I just don't think Ottawa has what it takes to beat Toronto, and that is because there's a savior in Toronto this year, and his name is Craig Berube. Excuse me, Craig Berube. He has the Leafs absolutely dialed in right now, and you can really see as a result of that how the Blues were pulled out from the depths of hell in 2019. That this was the missing piece for Toronto as far as I'm concerned. Anthony Stolarz has been looking real good in net for them. They're playing, I'm going to use the word discipline loosely because it's still been kind of a bloodbath this series, but they're playing good hockey and it's really fun to watch. On the flip side of that, I just don't think Linus Ullmark is a playoff caliber goaltender for Ottawa.
He had a good night last night. I don't think Stolarz is even the answer for Toronto, but against an inexperienced team like Ottawa when it comes to playoffs, I don't think that's necessarily a game breaker. I think that where you'll start to see the differences in round 2, and I would be shocked, but round 3 if Toronto gets that far. But when they're going to have to go up against guys who are really, truly good experience, not only good teams, but have better goalies. So, they go to round 2, it'll be either Tampa or Florida. Not a matchup they like either way, I think. And then, God forbid, or not God forbid, but, in a scenario where they make the conference final, they're going to play, I would assume, Carolina or Washington. I don't think Montreal is coming back against Washington. The Devils, I can't believe, have even won a game, which is unbelievable to me. But so the Leafs, they don't really have that big test in front of them. I know obviously Ottawa is a huge rival for them. So, I mean, it's good that a team with this skill set is getting it done. And again, just a goal away from sweeping the series. So I envision they will win this thing. I really don't see Ottawa having the the horses to win this series after being down 3-0. But assuming Toronto wins, I'll be interested to see how Stolarz holds up against a team as good as the Panthers and as good as the Lightning over the course of a 7-game series.
I'm with you right there. Again, I'm anxious to see if they can hold their own once they get out of the first round. Now, one thing I do want to throw out there is it would absolutely not be unlike Toronto to blow this series at all.
It wouldn't be, but the 3-0 is pretty difficult, especially when there is, I don't want to say a valley in the difference in talent. I mean, there's quite a wide margin in the talent levels between the two teams. And I think Ottawa fans would never openly admit to it, but as a neutral fan, I've watched every game of this series, and it's like boys versus men almost. And there have been some good moments, obviously Pinto with a great game last night in game 4, including a shorthanded goal. But, Brady's been pretty good. But I don't know, man. It just seems that the talent gap is so wide now. And now that Toronto, as you mentioned, has much better coaching, I think this is just too much of boys versus men. And I had originally, when this series was locked originally, I was going to stay true to my word from, I think, either last playoffs or the beginning of this year, where I said, look, until the Leafs win another round or do any damage, I'm not going to be picking them in the playoffs. And when I first made my bracket, I was going to do Ottawa in 7. After thinking about it for a few days, I'm like, man, Ottawa hasn't been in the playoffs at all with this group. The Leafs have lost a lot in the playoffs, but they've been in the playoffs a lot. They know what happens and what you need to do to lose. And now they have a coach who's won a Stanley Cup, and they have a couple guys in there. Brandon Carlo's a guy who's been on plenty of deep runs with the Bruins. Chris Tanev went on the deep run with the Stars. So they have guys in their room who know how to play playoff hockey, and I think that's the difference. So I actually ended up picking Toronto in 7, although now with the way the series went, I see them very easily closing this out at game 5 at home.
I'm with you 100%. Honestly, that's the way I hope it goes. And it's worth noting that if I'm not mistaken, a 3-0 series deficit has only been overcome twice in the first round. In the history of the National Hockey League, it's 2 or 3 times. It's not that much. It's happened more than that in the entirety of the playoffs. But first round specifically, I think it's only been 2 or 3 times throughout the history of the NHL. And I can't remember who the teams are off the top of my head who did it. Not important. If you want to know, Google it.
I can't think of it. Well, I know the LA against the Sharks was the first round of 2014. I can't think of the other one that would have been in the first round. But regardless, let's move on here. Talk about, I mentioned obviously in all likelihood the Leafs will play the winner of the Florida and Tampa Bay series. So I have to imagine at this point that you're pretty well engaged with this series. Ben, it looked, look, I'll be straight up. I thought it's funny. Last year I picked Tampa Bay because they were rolling into the playoffs, and Florida just beat the brakes off them. This year, it made more sense. Now Florida has come off of 2 runs to the finals. Ekblad missed the first 2 games. You weren't sure what percentage of Matthew Tkachuk you were getting coming back from injury. Well, after games 1 and 2, it's like, okay, these are still the Florida Panthers. Ironically, they get Ekblad back and they lose that game, but this series is still 2-1 in Florida's favor, with game 4 being at home. This series is one where I'm like, I really don't know what to make of this because both of these teams are so built for the playoffs. And I feel like even though I put some thought into my guesses on predicting a winner, I feel like that's largely irrelevant just because of how good they both are. It'll come down to probably who gets the better bounces in order to pick a winner in this series because they're both so skilled and they can both win it all. Your mic's muted.
It sure is. I must have accidentally bumped that. But it's going to come down to a couple of things. One is going to be goaltending because we've seen both these goaltenders before. When they're dialed in, that's it. They're brick walls. And it's obvious that playoff Vasi wasn't present the first 2 games. I thought game 2, the goaltending was a lot better on Tampa Bay's side. But game 1, that was not playoff Vasi. But I still have this series going 7 games this year, and I still pick Tampa to come out on top.
I have Tampa in 6 on mine, so
I don't see
jump
now. And I know I said this last season, and like you said, the Panthers kind of surprised everyone who came out and beat the brakes off Tampa last year. But I don't see a scenario this year where this series goes any less than 7 games. And I would love for it to, as long as the Panthers come out on top, obviously. But I think Tampa is a significantly better team than they were last year, both on paper and on ice. So, and this series has already been pretty brutal. There's been a lot of undisciplined penalties on both sides that I don't like. And I mean, you've got to be smarter than that in games that matter this much, especially on Florida's end. You're trying to defend your cup, and I know everything is going to be more physical. There's going to be more aggression, but you've got to play smarter on the ice and not take stupid penalties. And here's another thing. Don't go 0 for 6 on a power play if you're Tampa Bay.
Yeah. Now, one thing, we'll mention real quick, even though the discipline's already been handed out, the Brandon Hagel hit on Barkov was garbage.
Bullshit.
I know I've seen a lot of Tampa fans jump in to defend Hagel that he doesn't have a history of discipline, and that is true. But if you really know this game very well, you'll know from all the mic'd up stuff that Brandon Hagel is a massive shit talker. He's a total motor mouth on the ice, and I've mentioned before, he talks a lot of shit for a guy who hasn't won jack shit in this league at all. So he plays on Tampa, but he wasn't with them when they won their cups, and he kind of walks around with this kind of, or he talks on the ice with this kind of swagger like he's done something. So I can't really stand the guy. He's a really good hockey player, but he's just kind of a whiny baby, and so I thought the suspension was warranted for him. For the game, Barkov, one of the most well-respected guys in the league too, never has the puck and just gets blasted. So that was a really poor decision by Hagel. I think one game was appropriate given that he doesn't technically have discipline history, but kind of well-deserved. And then game 4, the Tkachuk hit on Gensel. There's no two ways about it. That was a stupid hit. The only defense was that he did at least have the puck at some point, which may allow Tkachuk to avoid suspension, was because at least it was a guy who had the puck at one point. But that was a super late hit. It was obvious that it was just mad that they were about to lose the game with the empty net coming up. And so it's a big crushing hit, and Tkachuk telling him at the bench, hey, keep your head up. I'm like, that's kind of a rat thing to do to a guy that you just made a really late hit on. So not a fan of that one either for the Panthers or for Tkachuk, but for the Panthers going forward. Look, Ekblad's back now. You look to, rebuild the chemistry, get all the defense pairs clicking, all the forward lines clicking. And you're going at this with a 2-1 series lead, and your next game's at home. So even though game 3 doesn't necessarily go their way, as much as I think Tampa Bay still has a great chance to win the series, Florida's got themselves in a spot now where, like, look, obviously they're not going to get the sweep here, but they've got a great chance to come out on home ice and correct and, right the ship and go back to Tampa up 3-1.
Correct. And this goes for both teams, actually. You have to win games on home ice, or one, you're setting the series up to go 7 games if you're not doing that. But also for the fans' sake, too. I mean, nobody wants to come home or come watch their team lose every home game in a playoff series. So you have to get these games on home ice, and there's nothing wrong with going into the opponent's barn and playing out of your minds and getting the dubs on the road, but you want to get those dubs at home too. So there's things both teams need to work on. I agree with you on both hits. Personally, as a Panthers fan, I think Tkachuk deserves a suspension. There's no way around that. That was intentional. It was dirty, and it was completely unnecessary. Like you said, that's just one of those, you're pissed off because you're about to lose the game. Get over it. And as for Matthew Tkachuk, shame on him, because he's always had a bad reputation as a rat in the league. And he's really come into this Panthers organization and made a name for himself, not just for the Panthers, but for himself around the league. And he's slowly started to build a good reputation for himself. And then he comes out and does exactly what everybody always accuses him of doing. So you got to know better than that. But it is what it is at this point. If he gets a suspension, I 100% think it's warranted. And if you're a Panthers fan and think it's not, you're wrong. I'm sorry. That totally deserves a suspension in my book.
I don't think it was as bad as the Hagel one, but
no, it wasn't, but it's still warranted for suspension.
I think for Tampa Bay going forward here, the message is, though, look, they had a rough start to the series, but again, Hagel will be back for game 3. So they'll have, or game 4, sorry. It looks like Gensel was fine after the game. So they should have a fully healthy roster. You have big momentum. You just went into your rival's barn and tore the house down. And so even though they're not back even in the series, this is still a well-structured group, well-coached group. They've obviously faced plenty of adversity in the playoffs before, given their 3 runs to the finals. So I don't think Tampa Bay, there's any panic in their room either. So as much as I think Florida's got themselves set up to take full advantage and win the series now, I think Tampa Bay in the same right could go out and clobber them again in game 4. And all of a sudden we have an even series going back to Tampa. So probably one of the most skilled head-to-head matchups in the playoffs, probably the most in the East, I would say. I mean, and we'll get to the 2 Metro matchups, but Toronto versus Ottawa, like I said, it's kind of men versus boys. And like I said, we'll get to the Metro series in a sec, but those are pretty big gaps as far as skill there too. So at least in the East, this is the best skill versus skill matchup.
I agree wholeheartedly. And I also just want to take a real quick second to say I truly appreciate how great of a fit Jake Kensel has been in Tampa Bay. He looks right at home there. He's a fan favorite. I mean, he's always been a great player. He's one of those that's going to be great no matter where he is, but he is just slotted right into that organization, and I think it's a great fit for him.
Yeah, I still can't believe the Penguins let him go, but that's beside the point. We'll talk about the Penguins in the offseason because right now it ain't even worth the hassle. I do want to talk about the Metro Division though, and talk about the matchups here. So we're gonna keep it short and sweet with the Jersey and Carolina series. I'll be straight up. I haven't watched 1 second of these games as they've happened. I've only watched the highlight packs. Jersey's very obviously outclassed in this scenario with the injury to Jack Hughes, the overall gap in talent. I mean, obviously the Devils have great players, Jesper Bratt, Nico Hischier, Jack Hughes when he's healthy. But Luke Hughes, this is a very talented group, and they are not a bad team. But missing your best player against Carolina, who all I do is dump on him in the playoffs, this team's good enough to get past rounds 1 and 2. They've done it before. They're probably going to do it again now. Other than the double overtime loss in game 3, it just seems like there is just a mountain of a difference between these two teams. Carolina is so much better. And for all the crap I give them as a team for not getting it done in the playoffs, they're built to get somewhat far. It's just my issue has always been that they're not built well enough to get over the hump. And I still don't think they are with Freddie Anderson as their goalie. But right now that doesn't matter to them. That it seems like they're beating up on a team that they're just much better than. And for the Devils, yes, they have a win, but I would hope to God you could win a game in your own barn at least once in the playoffs.
You would think that, but sweeps happen for a reason. Now, I will say I have watched a couple games from this series. The only game I watched start to finish was game 1. And it was like, I mean, Carolina has their number. And as you mentioned, and I'm paraphrasing here, this is one of those series that you know how it's going to go before it starts.
Yeah. This was like New York versus Washington last year.
Exactly. So it's not something you need to be a genius to figure out. Even someone who's just a casual hockey fan can probably figure out where this series is going to go. Now, to your point about Carolina being built to go somewhere in the playoffs, but not all the way, I do agree that Freddie Anderson's part of the issue, but I'm going to circle back to where we said earlier in the season that part of the problem is Rod Brindamore too. And I'm not necessarily calling him shitty because he's not. I do think he's a good coach. I just don't think he's a Stanley Cup caliber coach.
He's a Stanley Cup caliber player. That's for damn sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. Let me put it this way for the Hurricanes, just to make some level of peace here. I look, the Hurricanes aren't a bad team. First of all, there's a reason they've been at the top of the Eastern Conference the last several years. And there's a reason they always win at least a couple rounds. But to make it very easy, let's say Carolina wins the East this year and they go to the Stanley Cup final. I don't think, in my heart of hearts, I don't think they can beat any of the 8 teams in the Western Conference in a playoff series. I think all 8 of those teams, every single one, is better than the Hurricanes. And that's not to be mean, and it's not to, it's not to have any kind of hyperbole, anything like that. It doesn't seem like it. All of those teams have much better goaltending, and half of those teams, well, you look at Vegas and Colorado, who have recently won Stanley Cups, but those teams are built to win championships, and they've proven it. The Jets haven't done anything yet, but there's a reason they were the best team in the league this year. The Blues have been on a heater now that Montgomery's the coach and Jordan Binnington's been somewhat serviceable since the Four Nations. Now he's been really good. And even Minnesota now, and we'll get to them later, they've turned it on. They're playing great hockey. Vegas, again, Stanley Cup champion. Dallas is one of the best teams in the league. LA has been unreal this year. The Oilers are dinged up to hell and missing Ekholm and I don't think they're going to survive past the first round themselves. But if I put them straight up against Carolina, I think they could beat them in a series. I think McDavid and Draisaitl would give Freddie Anderson a sunburn with that goal light by the end of the series. I mean,
yes, sir.
They're a good enough team to get it done, but there's a reason I pick on them so much for not being able to get over the hump, because they just keep trying the same shit over and over again. And it might be enough with the way that the bracket's structured this year to get them to the conference final, or even to get them to the Stanley Cup final. But man, they're crazy if they think they're winning a championship with their roster. I will, however, say that they are going to probably beat the crap out of the Devils these next 2 games and move on.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be a banged up Devils team more than it already is by the time this series is over. So
why the hell are you wearing sunglasses?
I don't know.
I don't know either. Yeah,
that's all I got for you.
You look like Dr. Disrespect or whatever the hell his name is.
Dr. Who? I don't even know who that is.
The Twitch streamer. He's the guy.
Yeah.
He's that one dude everybody hates. Anyways,
there's a lot of those. So.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, well, he's the one. Never mind. We won't get into that. That's a topic for a non-hockey episode. Yeah. Anyways. But yeah, I feel like I said, we'll keep it short and sweet. Devils pull out one at home, but the talent gap between them and the Hurricanes is just too vast, I think, for them to overcome. Without Jack Hughes, if they had Jack Hughes, it changes the complexion of their lineup, because you change the lines up, you get the chemistry back in. And with Jake Markstrom and net, surely they could win that series in the right conditions. But this is not that. So I'm going to go with my initial prediction of Hurricanes in 5.
Give me 1 second. I just have to respond to my wife's text message real quick.
All right, that's fine. Well, while you're doing that, I can get us set up on the next one here. So we had what's been a really fun series to watch so far, Washington and Montreal. That's been a great one. First of all, I thought going into this, hang on, let me bring my bracket back up because I just set it down. I had Washington in 6 games in that one, and I think I keep mentioning these talent gaps. I think Washington is far better built for this kind of for the playoffs, and given the experience of some of the guys on their team, I think this is definitely the easy pick to have them winning the series. But my big takeaway from this series is that the home ice has mattered, really. Washington, first of all, Ovi with his first career playoff overtime winner, which is hard to believe, but he gets that in game 1 in that series, and Washington just was buzzing in their own building. They just seemed like there was never a doubt they were going to win both those games, even with the overtime game. It just felt like they were always in the driver's seat. But they go into Montreal, and it's biggest arena in the league. The fans have been begging for playoff hockey, other than the pretend COVID years where the playoffs were all fucked up. They haven't played playoff hockey in front of their home fans in 9 years or 8 years or whatever it's been. So they were geeked to get in there, and Marty St. Louis, I thought, did a great job line matching in game 3. And, the Habs, who I thought were going to be, toast after game 3, I thought they'd be down 3-0. They had a great game at home. The fans were loving it. They were really into it. It's just a reminder that, they're kind of like the Yankees of the NHL. It's like really rich history and really deep rooted, passionate fans for, several generations now. And you could tell Washington was kind of a little bit overwhelmed. And then the injury to Logan Thompson too, which was nuts. I thought it was pretty shitty of the Habs fans to kind of taunt him while he was going off the ice with an injury, but that's par for the course in Montreal. Their fans have always found a way to cross the line and make inappropriate remarks and stuff like that over the years. And that's no secret. So I'm not going to act like it is, but as a whole, you're not going to let a few bad fans ruin it for everybody else. It was a really good game. They packed that building. They were ready to go. And then the players put on an absolute show for them. So we'll see if the Caps can rebound in game 4, but that home ice in that one, I think, is really going to make the world a difference there, because as much as I thought there was a gap between the talent in these two teams, Montreal really has bridged it pretty quickly and have themselves in a spot where they can get this thing tied up.
Well, I think that as it sits right now, Montreal is probably the hardest barn to play in right now, as far as the environment goes. So I see you. They were a team that was looking good anyway. Now, I still don't think Montreal's capable of winning this series, but I do think Washington's going to need a real serious rebound, or we're going back to Montreal or going back to Washington tied up. This is another one where I thought, it was going to be a short series, but if Montreal plays like they did the other night, this is one I can see going 6-7 games. So we'll kind of see what happens. I want to apologize to any Capitals fans that listen to our show. I remember what I said at the beginning of the season about you guys have nothing to look forward to this year other than Ovi. And
I
I
said
am
the same thing. Everybody said the same thing.
Yeah. So I just want to say I was
if
wrong.
Spencer Carberry
wrong.
doesn't win the Jack Adams for Coach of the Year, then the award's worthless. I know Scott Arniel had a great season with the Jets, and they're unreal, but the Jets were already a great team, and there was a path at the beginning of the season where you could see them being successful still. With the Caps, nobody fucking saw this coming. Nobody. Correct. And if not for a great late season push by the Jets and an unbelievable start to the year, it would have been the Caps winning the President's Trophy, but maybe they were just trying to avoid the President's Trophy curse. Who knows? So, but yeah, just a great season from them so far.
And, as much as I want the Panthers to run this thing all the way back and go back to back, there's probably, in addition to that, there's nothing I would love to see more than Ovi win a Stanley Cup the same year he broke Gretzky's goals record. I mean, that is fairy tale type shit right there. And I would love to see it happen. But I mean, they still got a long road ahead of them, and it's a very capable team that is very well coached. So we'll see what happens moving forward. But I just wanted to throw that out there real quick because I can definitely admit when I was wrong. And I think it wasn't just me or just you. A lot of people were wrong about the Caps this year. So,
yeah,
but
I will
wrong
say
in a good way.
The other side of the coin is that Marty St. Louis in his first playoff run as a coach has a chance to shock the world and show off how good his young team is too. And Marty St. Louis is a super gifted player. I always have a special spot in my heart for the smaller guys that are in the league that dominated. You look at like a Marty St. Louis and Johnny Gaudreau, may he rest in peace. Those smaller guys like that where they are always kind of doubted coming up. And I mean, you talk about Marty St. Louis, one of the best players and probably the best player in Tampa Bay's franchise history. And just a really talented player, and it's translated very well into his coaching career thus far. He's got this team dialed in and playing very well, and you can definitely see they believe in themselves. I still don't trust their goaltending 100%, but you know what? Dobish comes in for Montreal in Game 3 and looks good. So who knows? It may work out for them, and we'll have to see. But yeah, this will be an interesting one to follow. Game 4, I think, is so pivotal in this series now. It's going to make or break it for either one of these teams. So we'll see how that goes. All right. Let's see. Well, let me pull up my Western side of the bracket here. Any other remarks on Washington and Montreal?
No, not yet. Well, talk to me next weekend.
Yeah, I was going to say these series should all be wrapped up by next Saturday, next Sunday. So there's a chance they could all be done by our next episode. So we'll see. Let's look at the way we do
episodes. It might be the playoffs might be done.
Say we'll be in free agency. All right, going out west, Winnipeg and St. Louis. So this has been some great rivalry hockey. These are two teams that very clearly just don't fucking like each other at all. And as a fan of a team in their division, I'm glad. I hope they beat the crap out of each other. So, but this has been really good. This has been everything it's advertised as. St. Louis comes in the playoffs really hot. Obviously, the Jets come in as the league with the league's best record, and they are just like two dinosaurs running headfirst at each other. I mean, they are just absolutely battling every game. There's nastiness after almost every whistle. The fans are really into it. This has just been an absolute treat so far. This one I have Winnipeg in 6 in this one. I think this is the year they exercise their playoff demons and go on a deep run. Or I don't want to say go on a deep run, but they don't have Connor Hellebuck letting in 6 goals a game. I think this is a year for the Jets to really make a statement for themselves. And thus far it went pretty well, but Game 3 in St. Louis was probably the exact opposite of everything they wanted.
Yeah, I would agree. And I really don't want to knock St. Louis for anything because I have liked the way they've looked. I like what Jim Montgomery has done for the team since he came in as coach. I think that was such a great move by the Blues after the Bruins' brains exploded by letting Jim Montgomery go. He's done nothing but great things for this Blues team. Jordan Binnington has looked good. People are going to disagree with me on that as far as the playoffs go, but you're playing the most high caliber team in the league right now. So it's going to be
Winnipeg's also probably one of the hardest buildings to play in the playoffs too.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's for those who don't know, it's a smaller arena. I believe it's the smallest arena in the league.
Yeah. Well, technically right now Utah is, but that'll be rectified in about a year and a half.
Right. Yeah. I'm not going to count Utah for that just because of how everything's had to happen over there. They get a break, but Winnipeg is the smallest arena in the league. And it's arguably the loudest in the league when playoffs roll around. Great arena from what I hear, But if you're a visiting team, even if it's not playoffs, if you're a visiting team in that arena, life is going to be difficult for you. But again, like Brian mentioned, you don't have Connor Hellebuck letting in 6 goals every game this season. He's looked like a Vezina caliber goalie in the playoffs this time. So what's that?
I said except game 3.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, you're allowed to have a flub. Shit happens. And I don't want to rip on him too hard. I'm not an NHL anything except fan. So,
yeah.
But again, this is another one of those series, much like Carolina and New Jersey. You know how this series is going to go. Or let me rephrase that. You know how this series should go, whether you're a diehard fan or not. Now, it's the playoffs, and we've said this before on the show. Once you make the playoffs, anybody can win the Stanley Cup at that point. But this is one of those where it should be pretty cut and dry. Winnipeg should be blowing them out of the water. We'll see what happens come next weekend, where they're at. But this is one where if Winnipeg doesn't come out on top of this series, I'm not only going to be surprised, but extremely disappointed.
Yeah, I think losing Holloway when they lost him was just brutal for the Blues. But Jimmy Snuggerud, who I privately have told you for over a year now, watching him play at the University of Minnesota, I told you, I said, when this kid goes to the Blues, he's going to be a machine, and he's played very well for them thus far. So as much as I think St. Louis is up against an opponent that they can't quite beat, I definitely think they've got everything in them to take this thing to 7. I originally, I believe, picked the Jets to win this series, in 6, but the resiliency St. Louis is showing, if they can have another game like they in game 4, like they did in game 3, I mean, anything can happen now. So we'll see. I don't see them getting over the hump against the Jets, but you know what? If they do, I'll probably be able to look back and go, yeah, I could see it happening. I just, again, with the loss of Holloway, I feel like it screws with the line chemistry a little too much. And with how good the Jets already are and they're healthy, it's just, I don't know. It's hard for me to see an easy path for the Blues to win this thing. So,
well, that's like what I said. I was like, you see how this series should go in theory, but anything can happen. So we'll just watch and see what happens. But regardless, it's been one of my favorite series to watch in these playoffs so far. So,
all right, now we'll get to another great rivalry one. St. Louis, or not St. Louis, sorry, the Avalanche and the Stars. Holy cow.
Man,
this one
I'll tell you what.
As hell. First of all, I thought this series would be 3-1 Avalanche.
Colorado, yeah.
By this point, after the way game 1 went, I'm like, oh, just stick a fork in the Stars. Now, to the Stars' credit, they come out and they get 2 overtime wins. And I mentioned this with the Leafs and Sens series. Look, there were we're 1 bounce away in each game from this series being over. Colorado wins those overtime games, the series is a sweep, but they don't. And all of a sudden, we're going back to Dallas. Essentially, we're back to square one now. It comes down to a best of 3 because we're tied 2-2. But for Colorado, they win the first game and then they lose obviously game 2 in overtime. They come back home, big emotional night. Gabriel Landeskog's triumphant return to the NHL, which was so satisfying to see. The emotions were high, the crowd was into it, but that was just such a well contested game from both goalies that eventually somebody the dam had to break on one side, and Blackwood lets in the winner on that one. But they come back out game 4, Colorado does. They play a great game. They run the Stars out of the building, really. Mackenzie Blackwood gets the shut, I think, on 23 saves, and Landeskog gets a goal and an assist. And now this looks like the Avalanche are locked in, ready to go now. I know this series is back even, and it's actually headed back to Dallas, but this looks like an Avalanche team that's like, yeah, here the fuck we come. We're going to just cram it down your throat every game. We're not editing that out. That sounded weird, but we're keeping that. They're bringing it every single game, and it doesn't look like anybody can stop them. If they play even remotely close to that every game, they're going to kill everything in their way. And there's a reason I picked the Avalanche to win the Stanley Cup this year.
Fucking Charles Barkley with the suggestive commentary over here.
Yeah, I was gonna say, listen, when you got a guy banging up against you, Charles Barkley. God. But I picked the Avs to win the series in 6. Based on the way this is going, if they play games 5 and 6 like they've just played in game 4, there's a good chance that prediction's accurate. Look, Dallas is banged up. I still don't believe there's a return timeline for Miro Heiskanen, and they say he's day-to-day, but sources are saying that he's not as close as the team has led them to believe, and I think Robertson's still week to week. So I know Sagan's kind of had a resurgence these first few games. Jamie Benz played very well. Marchment, when he's not diving, his play, which is almost never, but he's played pretty damn well. Jake Ottinger is an incredible goalie. There is still an easy chance Colorado can hang on and win this series. I mean, they could come and win the next 2 games and they're moving on. But at this point, the games they won, they just squeaked by the Avalanche in overtime. And the games they lost, they got their absolute shit kicked in. This has all the makings of a series that could probably already be over. And I'll tell you what, if Colorado comes out and wins these next 2 games like that, I mean, it'll really make more sense in hindsight. But just the way that the Stars have had to claw their way to just barely survive. I'm like, this is a team that's throwing everything at the wall and hoping something sticks, and they're just hanging on. So I think this is a matter of time before the dam fully breaks and the Avalanche just light it up and move on. But and I say all that again, I picked the Avs to win the Stanley Cup, so of course I have them winning the series. But after watching how they started off with Game 1 and how they've really gelled together again with Landeskog in the lineup, got the chemistry going in Game 4. It's hard to see anybody beating these guys.
Yeah, I agree. And if Dallas does manage to squeak out the series victory here, they're definitely not going to make it out of the second round because they're going to be banged up. They're going to be exhausted because they're throwing every single thing they have at Colorado right now. And while you can argue it's paying off, again, like you mentioned, they're just squeaking by at this point. And I have this series. Let me look. I'm looking at one of my 27,000 brackets I made.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at
he really wants that. He wants that free trip to Vegas. He's making as many brackets as he can.
Yeah. Well, I just figure if I make enough, I'm just bound to be right about something at some point. But I remember last year, hey, my official bracket was perfect all the way through, I think, the conference final. And then I got fucked up in the West, if I remember correctly. But anyway, I digress. But I have Colorado winning this series in 6 games, and I'm still going to stand by that. But I don't know, man. Here's my take. Colorado, clearly the better team here. The problem is Dallas isn't a bad team. Dallas is still a very fast, well-coached, good team. So while Colorado should be the clear-cut winner here, it's going to be an uphill battle for both of them to get there. So we'll see. I don't know, but I'm going to stick with Colorado for this one.
Fair enough. Let's head over to the Pacific side of the bracket. Vegas and Minnesota. Now, obviously, precursor to this, my wife's a big Vegas fan. Obviously, I love Minnesota, so we've watched this series as intently as we could. We couldn't watch Game 2 because it started at 11 Eastern. And we both have jobs, and I wasn't staying up till 2 a.m. To watch Game 2. I wish I would have because the Wild put on a clinic. But this series, look, I'll be straight up. I knew the Wild were going to be healthy, and I knew before the injuries they were a wagon. But with Vegas's playoff experience and how good they are, I also didn't think Mark Stone and Jack Eichel would go the first 3 games without a point. But I thought this was going to be Vegas in 5. I'll be straight up. I hate making predictions against my own team, but it just felt like the gap. Now, I don't want to say even the gap in talent because the Wild have a lot of top end talent. They have one of the best decors in the league. It just with Vegas's playoff experience and how good of a coach Bruce Cassidy is, and it just felt like the Wild were in too deep on this one. But look, the series is going back to Vegas tied. The Wild had a chance to go back there up 3-1 and lose in overtime in Game 4. This has been a really well contested series. The Wild have really, as a fan of the team, I see the minimal amounts of coverage they get in the media. This series has put them on the map. I've seen pundits from all networks talking about the Wild and Kaprizov and Boldy and Gustafsson and Brock Faber and Jonas Brodin. I mean, these guys are getting glazed on every single network. And as a fan of the team, it's exciting. And it's just crazy that it's taken this long for them to get this kind of coverage. But I mean, truthfully, before the last 5 years, it wasn't shit to be excited about there. But for them to be in this series, I mean, they have just as good a chances of winning this as Vegas does now. I'm very impressed with the team, but between the two of them, this is such a high-skilled matchup. It's crazy going back and forth. There hasn't been a lot of dirty bullshit. There's been a couple plays I haven't liked. The officiating's been terrible on both sides, which I can't even. The Game 4 was a nightmare as far as the officiating went. I think both teams could have probably had about 4 more power plays, but the refs had the whistles in their pockets and their sleeping masks on. This has been such a crazy, high-skilled affair. This has been such fun hockey to watch, and you don't get that rivalry aspect of it, but it just feels like, again, like I mentioned earlier, it's like two dinosaurs running head first at each other, just ready to battle. And this has been a good series. I'm proud of the Wild for putting up the fight that they have so far. And obviously, as a fan, I hope they win this series. But man, has this been just chaotic as hell to watch these games.
You know, I have to put this right up there with the Winnipeg series. This series has been fun to watch from the start. And I have to say, I'm not a Minnesota Wild fan, and I cannot stand Vegas. But I got to commend both of these teams, man. This is probably shaping up to be the best series of the first round, I think, especially if it ends up going 7 games. I need to put on my clown shoes and a clown mask because I think every one of my brackets I made, I had Vegas sweeping the Wild, and that's not a testament to me saying, the Wild are bad. I was strictly basing it off of statistics and the success Vegas has had, plus their playoff experience. I thought that Vegas was a shoe-in for a sweep in this series, and I was pleasantly surprised with how Minnesota's been playing. Kirill, top 5 player in the league. Love watching him. He's so fast. He makes everything just look effortless. Matt Boldy, here's another thing. You give it a couple of years that he's going to be one of the best forwards in the league. I'd guarantee it. He is. I know he's young. He's 24. He's still one of the best players on the Wild. And I mean, if he's going to be key to their success going forward. And I think that Minnesota actually has the juice to pass or to eliminate Vegas. And there's nothing I would love to see more than that. And I'm not trying to pump your tires because I'm not a fucking Wild fan either. But that out of this series, that's who I'd like to see come out of it. And, I didn't originally think it was going to happen, but they're proving me wrong in the best way possible. And I'm loving every second of it. They're playing good, smart, and aggressive hockey. So I'm going to keep watching it. I haven't missed a game of that series so far, except the 11 p.m. start one. And I'm not going to start now. So we'll see what happens.
Well, and truthfully for them, look, again, I don't think it's a skill thing. Like you said, it's not an issue if the team's not good enough. It's Vegas has the experience. They've won very recently. They're just that good. And I don't want to take anything away from the Wild because clearly after these 4 games, they've proven that they are one of the best teams in the league and that the injuries were truly the reason they finished where they did. And so, I mean, I think there's a great chance that they win this series. And after just the domination that they had in Game 3, and I know they lose Game 4, but to me, after Game 4, even though they lost the game, just the way they hung in there, the resilience to tie the game up a minute after they gave up the lead in the third period off that weird play where half the arena thought it was a penalty, half the people were indifferent. The resilience to come back, the Wild teams in the past, that's where they crumble. A goal like that goes in and they shut down and they don't come back. And this is the first time now in this playoff run where I truly believe, look, they maybe have a shot at doing this. And I'm going to commend the play of Marcus Foligno too, who has had a resurgence the last 3 months or so. He has really ramped it up. I know he's not a spring chicken anymore, but he has really turned up the heat the last little bit. And he's been very effective for them in the playoffs. And Ryan Hartman, for all the bad things I've said about him and a lot of the Minnesota media has said about him, he's been just unbelievably consistent and excellent in these playoffs. He's playing second line minutes. He's driving the play on his own line. He's really, really doing a great job. And I'm very, Andrew's putting his microphone, his pop filter over his nose like a clown nose. Actually, you kind of look like Mickey Mouse when you did that.
I thought it looked like, you remember in Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer when they cover his nose?
Yeah, that's what you look like.
Dude, that's what it reminds me of. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to fuck you up.
But yeah, so the Wild have been playing good. Now, the other side of the coin is, look, Jack Eichel and Mark Stone go the first 3 games without a point. I think Jack Eichel gets a secondary assist in this game, so he's got 1 point. The tough part for the Wild is now you're going back to Vegas, and now you got to try and hold those guys off the score sheet in their own barn when Bruce Cassidy can line match against John Hines. And I think, again, that difference in playoff experience, that might be what breaks the Wild here. But as far as skill versus skill, I actually think this is much more evenly contested than even I originally thought. So rather than pumping the tires on either of these teams anymore, we're going to move on to the next series because this Wild and Vegas series feels the most unpredictable at this point. It's almost as, I would say, as much as the Tampa Bay and Florida series. Last series, this one seems pretty straightforward. LA and Edmonton. It seems like fourth time's the charm for the Kings. They're playing excellent. I know Oilers go out there and win the other night, but until the empty net at the end, that game was still pretty close. The Oilers just can't play defense. They're nothing without Ekholm. I know McDavid and the big boys can score, but LA is just too much for him this year. I picked LA in 6 in this one, and I think that might have even been a little generous just because of McJesus being on the team. LA special teams is great. Adrian Kempe's been filling in the net. It's just they look unreal. Kopitar looks like he's in his 20s again. He's just crazy as hell. So I think LA's got this by a mile.
I'm with you 100%, and this is honestly the outcome I'm wanting for this. I think it's LA's turn. I mean, the history between LA and the Oilers in the first round, yeah, you could argue it's the same as Boston and Toronto in the first round. You know what's going to happen, but I think it's LA's turn at this point. And it's kind of sad if you're Edmonton given the run you had last year. But it just is what it is. LA's the better looking team. I think I might get beat up for this by Edmonton fans, but I don't know how they could disagree with me. I think Stuart Skinner's a waste of money.
Not even that. It's look, LA went out last year. The biggest issues LA had last year were the defense needed to still be a little stronger, which they bolstered the defense. They actually added scoring too with Kuzmenko coming in, but the goaltending was terrible. It was non-existent. They go out and get Darcy Kemper, which is a roll of the dice at the best. I know I didn't overly praise him when that trade happened with Washington. But you go out, you attempt to solve your goaltending issues. We beat the piss out of Colorado forever until they finally fix their goaltending, and look what it's done for them. Edmonton, Stan Bowman comes in and doesn't do jack shit. This team is pretty much the same team they had last year, except now no Dylan Holloway, no Philip Broberg. The team is worse on paper. The goaltending still sucks. I pick on Carolina. You do the same thing and expect different results. Look, the Oilers made it to the final last year, but Stuart Skinner's play was so bad the first couple rounds. He's not at his best, he's a really good goalie, and at his worst, he's unusable. This is not a guy you can go with long term, and it's just what it is. And now Edmonton's reaping, they're paying the price for their inaction, and that falls on the GM. I don't care if you say Stuart Skinner's our guy. There's no evidence to support that. Yeah, you got to the final with him, but it wasn't because of him. He had a great game against Dallas in the Western Conference final clincher that sent them to the finals, but he wasn't the reason they won that series at all. It was the guy that won the Conn Smythe last year that was the reason they got that far. So for the Oilers, it's just hard to feel bad. And for LA, like you said, it's time for them. And it's worth mentioning that to this point still, because they haven't won the series yet, LA has not won a playoff series since they won the Stanley Cup in 2014. So it's time for them to get over the hump. Yeah, and Chicago the same way too. I can't believe that. But they haven't won the playoff series since their last Stanley Cup win in 2015.
And it's wild because both of those were dynasty level teams, but the Kings and the Hawks, and just for it to abruptly come to an end like that.
They both ran into a brick fucking wall after their last championships. LA missed the playoffs in 2014, and then I think the Hawks had 2 straight first round exits to lower seeded teams in 16 and 17, and then they fell off.
They lost to the Blues in 16 and the Predators in 17.
That Preds team.
Granted, that was the Preds team that
went to the final.
So understandable at that point. But even still, you said the Kings missing the playoffs the next season. In 15, you literally won the cup. You go from winning the cup to not even making the playoffs. That's a tough look.
Yeah,
especially because that team didn't even change that drastically as far as who's on it.
Yeah, there was. I think. I don't know if anybody retired from that team. Maybe Robin Regeer or Willie Mitchell? No, because Willie Mitchell went to the Panthers the next season. Yeah, and became the captain. Yeah, the Kings really were largely unchanged, but I think they just figured out Sutter's coaching style, or he lost the room, or whatever. But for LA, this has been a long time coming. And with Toronto too, I should have said this. I should have prefaced by saying I don't want to just write it off yet and give them the series win, because anything can happen. But LA, similar to Toronto, seems like they're really in the driver's seat, and it's just a matter of they have to play these few games in order to secure the series win. But it seems like it's all but guaranteed.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Look, man. Now I don't think LA is going to make a deep run into the playoffs, but to prove something here, to show that there's hope for the future, they have to get past Edmonton in this first round, or else I mean, from a fan standpoint, you're just kind of like, you know what? Screw these guys.
I wouldn't write off LA too much, man. I think they can beat Minnesota or Vegas. I really do. They're a great home team. Nobody can be. They lost 5 times in regulation at home this season, man.
That's true.
They're an absolute wagon. They don't get a lot of coverage, even though they're LA, because they're not the Lakers or the Dodgers. But I'm telling you, man, this team is a lot better than people give them credit for.
Well, time will tell. And I'm not disagreeing with you, but it's the playoffs, and as I've said hundreds of thousands of times, probably this episode, anything can happen.
All right, well, we shall see. Hopefully, again, by this time next week, we may already have the conclusions of all these series. So I think the best way to do this is if these series all wrap up before next Sunday, we'll do a show next Sunday. Otherwise, we should just wait till next Monday, because by then we will for sure be done with the first round.
Yeah, I mean, regardless, we'll do a show. We'll wait till the playoff.
Yeah,
the first round is over.
First, yeah, exactly.
So playoffs are over.
Yeah. Now we have quite a few other things to talk about, but real quick, we're going to take a break and listen to our friends over at Xenopucks, and then we'll come back. And there's a few things we want to tackle. We never did like a season wrap on the Blue Jackets corner, so we'll take a break. We'll come back and we'll do that and mention all those things. So this is the Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast.
It's hockey season, and you're looking to work on your stick handling or maybe even your shot, but ice time just isn't an option for you right now. Luckily, our buddies over at Xenopucks have got you covered. They've developed an elite off-ice practice puck that, in addition to looking like the real thing, is the same size and weight as a regulation hockey puck to give you that authentic feel on the end of your stick. It works better than other off-ice practice pucks on almost any surface, whether you use it on hardwood, carpet, concrete, or even asphalt. Xenopucks glide like a real puck on ice. So if you're looking to improve your game without setting foot on the ice, head over to www.xenopucks.com and get yourself a puck. Check out their merch selection and be sure to follow them on Instagram at Xenopucks. And we are back with more Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast. As always, thank you to our friends Stephen Carter and the fine folks over at Xenopucks. Great product. Best hockey puck on the market as far as off-ice practice is concerned. Before we jump into the other things we wanted to cover, we had a write-in to the show. And since we haven't done an episode in 3 weeks because I'm a dirtbag, I wanted to get to this right away. It's not necessarily a question. It's more or less a response to Brian's question that he asked me as far as Cale Makar being the best defenseman goes. So I'll read it. It comes to us from our good friend of the show, Don Fournier. It says, hello again, boys. Congratulations on 50 shows and hopefully onwards to many more. It is not too early to say Makar will be the best defenseman to ever play the game. My favorite player of all time is Ray Bourque. Great choice, Don. As I was able to watch him as a kid. If Makar stays healthy, he will totally eclipse all his stats and other defensemen, which is amazing in this age of modern goalkeeping and just sheer league talent. I want to use one stat that cements in my mind why I have this opinion. It is to look at game-winning goals. Per NHL.com, Bourque has the record for defensemen at 60. Cale Makar already has 24 as of when I write this. He is a big-time player in big-time moments, and he makes it look easy. This guy's a stud, no question. Keep up the great work. Respectfully, Don. P.S. Go, OV, go. As this question was obviously sent to us before OV broke the record.
It's crazy that Bourque was almost a career point a game. 1,579 points in 1,612 career games. Makar... Hang on, let me bring up Makar's career. Now, Makar's over a point a game, which is hilarious. 428 points in 395 career games, which is just bananas to me. But,
dude, I got to scoot back from my mic. I don't know what it is. Like, when we're doing this, I always feel the need to, like, lean into my mic.
Yeah, I know you do. I watch you.
Well, say something, man. Tell my big ass to back the fuck up then. Because I'm going to go. I'll tell you what's going to happen. I'm going to go to edit this and my eardrums are going to explode from me yelling into my mic.
Don't worry. I think your eardrums were exploded when you were in high school listening to Green Day on full volume for 9 hours a day.
God damn, man. Look, I'm just trying to do a podcast and I'm catching fucking strays left and right, man. I don't like this.
Yeah. You chose to do this with a sibling. bad things going to happen.
Yeah, all right, Mr. All-American Rejects.
Yep. Damn right. I still listen to them.
Oh.
I don't even know when the last time they made an album was. But anyways.
I don't think they have. So,
oh, God, they probably haven't made one in a decade at least.
Anyway,
right.
Now that bus is finally passed that Brian just fucking threw me under.
Yeah, exactly.
Let you respond to Don if you have anything to say.
No, I think he's right on the button. Makar is just, first of all, being over a point a game as a defenseman's nuts. But you look at his season this year: 30 goals, 62 assists, 92 points in 80 games, which is just unbelievable. Now Bork has the record, I believe, still for the most career shots on goal, and that's going to be a tough one for anybody to pass. But it's impressive that he did it as a defenseman. I think Makar is well on his way there, though. I mean, he's already got 1,118 shots in his career, which is just mind-boggling. I think at the pace he's at right now, he would come very close to Ray's record. I'm not doing that math right now, but nonetheless, he's so talented. It's just unbelievable. He skates as well as any forward, and he skates backwards better than any defenseman. He's just really never the responsible party for a goal against. He's one of those guys where you see him go out on the ice and you don't even worry about the puck going in your net.
I'm just going to say this because nobody's come out and said it verbatim. Everything we've said, including Don, just pretty much hints at it, but I'll just straight up say it. Being a defenseman with all the talent of a phenomenal forward, he is today's modern day Ray Bork, and that's the best way to put it. And as long as he stays healthy and productive, he will maintain that throughout the rest of his career. No doubt.
Oh, yeah. And God, he's only 26, which is terrifying as a fan of Minnesota.
Yeah, he is. And that's wonderful, though, if you're a Colorado fan, and just for him career-wise. But I just want to say shout out to Don for writing into the show. He's been an avid listener. I don't think he's missed a single episode of this show since our very first one. Thanks for being along for the ride, man. We miss you. We hope you're doing well. And thanks for listening to the show.
Yep. Yeah, thanks for writing in, Don. We definitely appreciate that. And we appreciate anybody that wants to send in questions or comments, so please do.
We appreciate you even if you don't, just for the record. But
no, I'm kidding.
Okay.
All right, so we'll get to some other housekeeping around the league. Most of this will reflect non-playoff teams. So a couple coach firings. The Rangers fire coach Peter Laviolette, which, based on how they stumbled into the finish line this year, probably was needed. Look, Lavi, like Tortorella, he's just a guy. I think that he's past his expiration as far as being a coach. He gets the game very well, but his coaching style doesn't fit today's players, today's NHL. I think he's a guy that if he wanted to could be a great broadcaster. I think Torts should look to do the same thing. These are guys that know the game so well, but the style of play has just passed them up. And for Laviolette and the Rangers, everything has gone wrong for the Rangers this year. I'm not going to get into the Panarin stuff that just recently came out too. That's an entirely different conversation. I'm more looking at this from a hockey ops perspective right now with the Rangers, and just everything on the ice has just not gone their way. It's just Igor just had a terrible year by his own standards, and nothing just went right for the Rangers this year. So unfortunately for Ranger fans, the team is doubling down with the management group, extending Chris Drury, which that makes no fucking sense to me if the Rangers had any ambitions of winning anytime soon, but here they are. So we'll see what happens with them. I don't know if you have any thoughts on them, but I'm hoping they're looking into a qualified coach. I think everybody's kind of after David Carl out of the University of Denver, but man, I don't know where the Rangers go from here. There's still a lot of talent in that group, but something's missing there because you can't have a team with this much money on the books and this high of a skill level be this bad.
I don't have much to say regarding this, but there is a firing I want to get to real bad because it kind of pissed me off. And I don't want to jump ahead unless you're ready for me to.
Well, it depends who it is because I got a couple more. I got the Ducks firing head coach Greg Cronin.
That's not that one.
All right. We will still get to these. I just want to see if I have it on my list. Kraken firing Dan Biles.
That's it.
Okay, we'll talk about that now. Now, I'll say this. A couple of things. First of all, the Kraken, they fire head coach Dan Bilesma after one season. They also promoted Ron Francis from GM to president of hockey ops and promoted Jason Botterill to GM from AGM, I assume he was. The front office side of this, the promoting of Ron Francis and Jason Botterill, the GM, I don't hate it, I guess, but man, does it just feel like there's some disconnect there from ownership down to the management. I don't know what it is, but the Kraken have not seen the success that Vegas did, and I think that's kind of bothering them in their young franchise history here. I'll say this much for the firing of Dan Biles. Actually, I'll let you do your take on Bilesma first because I want to hear what your thoughts are before I unpack all my feelings. But I think the front office stuff is just kind of a mess. It seems like this team is not very well run. Go ahead.
Well, that's pretty much where I was going with this. It seems like you and I are on the same page. First of all, it's not like he was a fucking horrendous coach. Like, you're not, first of all, it was his first season in the NHL. Give the guy a fucking chance to breathe for a second. It's not like he went in there, didn't make the playoffs with an all-star team. It's the Seattle fucking Kraken. Why are you smirking like that?
I'm going to let you finish what you said, and then I'll lay in the mess you just made.
Oh, boy. All right. Well, here we go. I'll lay in the mess you just made. Give the guy a chance to breathe. Focus because of the look on Brian's face right now. But I agree that the front office is a mess. And, you brought up the Kraken not be. Would you shut the fuck up?
I haven't said a word.
Well, then uncross your fucking arm.
The people who know where I'm going with this are waiting for you to finish just as much as I am. Because this is, go ahead. Go ahead. Do your thing.
But to your thing, the biggest thing I want to address is your comment as far as them not having the success that Vegas had. I don't think anybody expected Vegas to have the success they had right out of the gate, and we certainly weren't expecting to see that out of Seattle. Now, yes, it's fair. They haven't looked like a consistently good hockey team since their inception, and I get the frustration there. Coming out of the gate, you do want to make a name for yourself, but I'm not even going to say what the fuck I have to say anymore because I just really want to see where Brian's going because he looks like a mom that caught you in a lie and already knows you're lying. So I just want to see what he has to say.
Well, I thought it was interesting that you mentioned that Stanley Cup champion Dan Bilesma was in his first year in the league.
Did I say that?
Dan Bilesma coached for 6 seasons with the Pittsburgh Penguins, including a Stanley Cup championship in 2009. He was the head coach of the Sabres for 2 god-awful years from 2015 to 17.
I didn't mean to say with the league. I meant to say with the team.
All right.
Did I say league?
Yeah, you said it was.
I got to go back to the dude.
You said it's his first year in the NHL. I'm like, nope, it is not.
Oh, fucking hell, dude. Whoops.
For what it's worth, Dan Bilesma, after he won the Cup with the Penguins, his career fell off a cliff. Yeah. His winning percentage dropped every single year except for the lockout shortened season. And then his last season with the Penguins, I think it was a full season. They had a .538 win-loss percentage, but they got bounced. That was a stretch of 5 seasons in a row where they got bounced by a lower seed, which resulted in his firing.
I promise on all that is holy. I promise on my marriage that I meant to say team and not NHL.
Now, rather than dunking on you for that, I want to counterpoint your thing about him not being a bad coach and say that I think he's a fucking terrible coach. And I think he was propped up in Pittsburgh by the great team that he had, but there was a reason that they fell off a cliff every single season after their Cup championship to a team that was worse than them. I would say in Buffalo, those teams were off too, but he wasn't a great coach. And then this year in Seattle, it hasn't worked out well for them. The roster's not great, but I didn't think it was so bad that they would miss the playoffs. I thought they'd be sniffing around by the end of the season, and it just isn't really close. So I will counterpoint you just to simply say that I don't think he's a good coach, and I think this firing was kind of necessary because his style clearly doesn't fit. But I will also say that it seemed, from what I can understand, it seemed like this was an ownership decision to remove him and look to bring in a new coach rather than a management decision.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I see your points. And I guess maybe I just have a bad take on this, I guess. And sometimes you have a bad take and that's how you just fucking accept it and move on. But I have my beliefs. I think you should give the guy more than 1 season with the team before you just can him. I see your points though, so I'm not going to discredit that, but I don't think it was justified yet.
Yeah, you're right. I think you got to give the guy more leash. I mean, the Blues gave Drew Bannister Oh boy, far too long from what we can tell now, especially. But sorry about that. But yeah, I think 1 year, and again, it sounds like it was an ownership move, so that's why it probably seems so sudden. I don't think most GMs worth their money would do this to a coach unless things really went south. But
yeah,
ultimately, the franchise, they want to win. They have a great passionate fan base there already. They got a beautiful arena. Like everything looks good there. They want the on ice product to match that, and so I get it. I hope this doesn't turn into a Eugene Melnick kind of situation where the owner starts to take too much control of the team instead of leaving it in the hands of the people that are capable.
I agree with you, and that's something you don't want to see that with any sports franchise. Honestly, it's you're an owner, fine, but you don't want to see the owners too involved in the front office, and I think that goes for any sport. But
yeah, Jerry,
to your point,
this is a football show. We can talk about that.
Yeah, yeah, we got to get to the draft. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. But I don't necessarily agree with you about Dan Bylsma. I just think they jumped the gun on firing him. I'm not saying it wouldn't have been justified down the line, but I think
it was premature.
Yeah, I think it was premature. I think one season isn't enough to tell, especially it's not like the Kraken are an absolutely stacked team. Again, it's not like he was going out there and losing with a championship caliber team. He's going out there and losing with a mediocre team in my book. So
all right. Well, rather than dunk on Bylsma, because he's a good dude, he's not a bad guy, so I don't want anybody losing their job, especially in a case like this where I don't think he's a good coach, but again, maybe it was premature. Let's get to two firings that I'm very excited about because both of these people are scum of the earth. All right, Greg Cronin in Anaheim, worst coach in the league, bar none, had a sick team this year with a bunch of young studs, with an outstanding goalie. I'm not saying they were the best team in the league, but they had a really good group there that had has lots of young, promising talent, and boy, did they fucking fall on their face. And from everything I can read and listen to about this guy, he's a piece of shit coach and a piece of shit person, and I'm glad he's fired, and I'm glad he doesn't have a job, and I'm glad the Ducks can go out and look for a coach that's going to give a fuck about this team. And I think Pat Verbeek realizes that this club has something special, and they need a good coach to lead it. Go ahead.
I don't know that I have anything to say after that. Holy shit. What do I even come back with at that point?
I've been so sick of Cronin with this crap with the Ducks forever. I don't like the Ducks. I'm not a fan of the Ducks, but you see a group that has talent and you see the way it's mismanaged. You watch Trevor Zegras and how the roller coaster of the start that he's had to his career. And you see Troy Terry and the promise he has, and McTavish, and how poorly they handled Jamie Drysdale there too, and just shipped him out willy-nilly. But they get Cutter Gauthier back, who's another great young player. Jakob Silverberg, who retired last year, was said in the Swedish press essentially that Greg Cronin was a pig-headed idiot. Something that, not his exact words, but right along those lines. I think pig-headed was one of the phrases he used. And so
start using that.
Nobody seems to like this guy. And again, this group looks so promising, 3-4 years from now, especially. But Lucas Dostal, one of the best goalies in the league. I mean, just an unreal group that should be. I'm not saying they need to be the number one team in the league, but they could easily be a top 15 team, potentially a top 10 team if Dostal just becomes a brick wall. I know there's a lot of building blocks that still need to go into place there, but to jeopardize the development of the young stars they have with a crappy coach like this is unacceptable. And I'm glad they've finally taken the steps to remove the number one issue there. So I don't want to spend too much time on that, but when I saw they fired him, I was like, thank God, let's see what this team's made of now.
I want to remove myself from this fucking podcast. Did I really say the NHL?
Yeah. We're talking about Bylsma. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. What the fuck?
That's all right.
Dude, my whole life is a lie now. You have me contemplating every decision I've made in life that's led me to this point.
That's okay. Well, if it makes you feel better, you look like the guy in the Pringles can.
That's only funny because I can see it. I agree.
Yeah, just the lighting on your mustache.
Yeah, right, absolutely.
What's funny is I don't even think this is going to be a video episode, and I'm talking about
no, but I always, every time we record these, even if they're not video episodes, I always record the video just so I can make snippets to put on our TikTok page, which, hey, by the way, you should check out our TikTok page if you're listening to this. It is at the Fresh Ice Pod. Just kidding. No, it's not. It's at Fresh Ice Pod. At the Fresh Ice Pod is our Twitter account that I just cannot bring myself to use because Twitter sucks.
Yeah.
But
Pretty
at
much
Fresh
also
Ice
some media
Pod, you could,
stuff.
you could find us. Yeah, you'll find us on TikTok there. I've been just as absent on there as I have been with the podcast the last couple of weeks, but that's fixing to change now that we're back. I'm doing that thing where I lean into my mic again, so I'm going to force myself to sit back. And yeah.
All right. Well, after that plug, we have another fire, and this one wasn't announced as a firing, but let's just call it what it is. Lou Lamoriello is out as the GM of the New York Islanders, and I gotta say, I hope I never see his face again in the NHL. Because boy, you talk about things. I talked about Laviolette and Tortorella and their coaching styles. Just the time has passed them by. Lou Lamoriello's general managing style has been out of style for probably 15, 20 years now. So I'm glad he's done. I don't know that he's done in hockey. This is all he's done his whole life, but he's 83 years old or whatever. Let's let this guy go. It sounds like Islander fans are pretty over it with him, and his son was running the AHL program in New York as well.
I heard John Spano's looking for a job.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm sure they won't be going to him for their paychecks. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Look, the Islanders. Look, it's not the Rangers. Well, that might actually upset Islander fans that I say that, but it's not the Rangers. It's not the biggest New York market. Let's just call it what it is. But it's still a New York team. There's still a lot of coverage. There's still really high expectations for a team that in the past had a really rich history. But boy, has it been brutal the last 30 years now. There's expectations there for this team to win. And with this dinosaur in the front office, and he's going to go full nepotism, letting his son run the AHL team. Hopefully you remove both of these guys from this program and allow them to bring in a good management team who doesn't care about what suits guys are wearing to the rink or how their hair looks or how their beard looks. You're worried about how they're playing on the ice. This looking professional and playing professional is bullshit, because all that started back in the days when guys were smoking cigarettes at intermission. So don't give me that crap. I care about how they play on the ice, not how they look when they show up to the rink. Right. And so Lou's style is just, it's very, very well aged, or very poorly aged now anyways. And at this point, it's time for him to go. He's too old, and this team needs to bring in somebody. Look, there's still a lot of good pieces on the island. Ilya Sorokin's one of the best goalies in the league. Matthew Barzal, when he's healthy, is going to be, as a force. Noah Dobson, Pelech, and Pulak are great on the back end. Like, there's talent there. There's plenty of talent there, but you need to bring in a guy who gives a rat's ass about the product on the ice, and not, Mr. Eye Test and Mr. Show up to the rink in a nice suit with a clean shaven face and a clean haircut. Go fuck yourself with that. That's not important. Yeah. It just isn't. It just isn't. I'm not going to, you can argue with a fucking wall if you disagree. It's just not important. So for the Islanders, it's very important for them going forward that they bring in somebody who's got a modern hockey mind and understands what today's game should look like on the ice and off the ice. And that's not Lou. It's as simple as that.
Well, I think this is about 10 years overdue. So I don't really have much to add to this, because I was surprised it hasn't happened sooner. I guess nothing should surprise me in this league anymore at this rate, but even still, I thought this is something that would have happened sooner, but I think you can only go up from here if you're the Islanders. And like you said, there's still good talent on the team there. I don't know. I think Ilya Sorokin, that is the future in goaltending for them right now. So I think this is a team that ultimately
it's the right now in goaltending for them.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
it's the present. Like they need to take advantage. These are his prime years of his career. They need to take advantage of this. And Lou's very well respected in a lot of hockey circles. I don't give a shit one way or the other about the guy, which is why I'm being so blunt with this. The reality is this: look, he led the Devils on. He built an incredible team in New Jersey for all those years, but towards the tail end of his career, it kind of fell apart. And after he left the Devils, the crap storm he left with them, they were irrelevant for several years. And he goes to Toronto and changes the culture, so to speak. But Toronto's best years so far really has been this one with Brad Treliving at the helm. The Dubas era Leafs and the Lamoriello era Leafs were, again, there was a change in culture there, but it didn't really get better until recently. All the guys that were under Lou, now that they're gone, it seems like the team's better off without them. He goes out to the island and sinks a ship that was floating along pretty well before he got there, I feel like. and now he's gone, and maybe they can rebound from that. I know Lamoriello is well respected, and I'm never going to take away the work he did with the Devils in the 90s, because he made them into he built a dynasty there, but he left an absolute shitstorm behind him on his way out. He probably delayed the progress of the Leafs by 3 or 4 years, and now they're finally starting to, now that they're well coached and well managed, they're starting to kind of piece it together a little too. I just think this guy's outdated, and it's no disrespect, it's just the truth.
I don't think anybody over the age of 80 has any business being
Working.
in charge of anything in the league. So,
yeah.
What'd you say?
I said no business working. Yeah. Go the fuck home.
Yeah. And that applies to anything. Anybody over the age of 80 has no business being in charge of anything, for that matter.
Yeah.
So it just is what it is. Go home. You've done your time. Your practices are outdated, and someday that's gonna apply to our generation too. There's gonna be
absolutely it will. It will.
We're gonna be too old to be relevant. Honestly, it just is what it is. Shit happens. It's part of getting old. Time to move on.
Yep. All right. Well, if it's time to move on for Lou, it's time to move on for us. So let's talk about. I'm going to bring up the Jets again. Neil Pionk signs a 6-year, $7 million per year extension with the Jets. It's a great deal for the team. Great deal for him. Pionk gets, again, security. He's going to be making 40 million plus American dollars over the next 6 years. He gets kind of a permanent home in Winnipeg. Now the Jets get a sweetheart deal on a very effective defenseman. So I like this deal for both sides. And again, for the Jets, especially in a playoff run, you don't want a lot of contract drama or anything like that. So not that this was ever a front page headline kind of contract negotiation, but you don't want any of your guys, when you're on a run like this, you don't want any of your guys to be feeling any type of way. So they get this deal done. It's good for the player. It's good for the team. Everybody's happy, and now we can play hockey.
Right. I'm with you. Excuse me for a second. I'm going to mute this.
He's coughing. That's rude. Who coughs? As I coughed into my mic earlier.
Yeah, I was trying not to do it into the mic. Oh, great radio, Andy. Don't remember where I was going.
I don't know. We were talking about Neil Pionk and the Jets, and then you just fell off a bridge.
Yeah, I'll be over here. I'm having massive ADHD brain today. So
me too. I've been playing with my phone case while we've been doing this.
I've just been not thinking properly. So
I've had my fair share of that too. We're going to move on then and talk about a couple of things in women's hockey. First of all, congrats to the United States ladies team winning gold at the World Championships, beating Canada in overtime. And again, this U.S. women's program just continues to take it to Canada at every opportunity lately, and it's been really good. So it's been great in general, women's hockey has grown a lot over the last couple of years, so it's been good for the game anyways. But for the U.S. side of things, it's great that one of our programs is doing so well. I wish that the men's team could translate some of that success into their own. And but for the ladies, again, a great show at the World Championships. Hillary Knight, as always, looked great. Great play from Taylor Heisey as well. Just a great group of ladies, and again, they just keep finding ways to win, especially at the World Championships for whatever reason. That is their tournament, and hopefully next year at the Olympics, at least as an American, hopefully they're bringing home gold there as well. Also in women's hockey, PWHL has announced that they are going to be expanding to Vancouver, which is big news for the league because a lot of the professional women's leagues in the past have kind of folded and fizzled out and because of financial reasons, but this league is clearly in a spot it's doing well enough to expand. And I know a lot of people are disappointed it wasn't a Detroit or a Pittsburgh or Philly or Chicago even. There is time for that. I think the Western markets needed a team. I think a lot of people were hoping for we're hoping for a Seattle or a Calgary or Edmonton or something like that. I think Edmonton would have been a great spot too, but Vancouver should do very well. And they're going to have a nice big arena to play in over there. So it should work out very well. And then hopefully before too long, we get a few more teams added in because this league has done very well for women's hockey. And more and more you see these younger girls are like, hey, I can do that. I want to play hockey too. And whatever helps grow this game for boys or girls, but whatever helps grow this game is good. And this league it seemed like it took a while for them to find a winning formula for a women's hockey league. And it seems like they finally have the foundation laid out and it's being done right. And now it's worked out to the point where they can expand after only 2 seasons. So how cool is that?
It's extremely cool. And like you mentioned, it gives girls growing up something to look forward to. Now, hey, that can be me now too. And there's a lot of fucking degenerate grown adults who call themselves men out there who are like, women's hockey sucks. No, it doesn't. It's just as good as men's hockey. It's just as entertaining. The skill is there. The speed is there. I love it. Hockey is hockey. That's the way I look at it. And I think it's great that they finally got a league structured now to where they can expand and do this right and hopefully become a very successful league and give these women the opportunity to make great money playing a sport they love. And it gives hope to future generations of young women.
Yeah, and honestly, I would say, especially now, like for girls coming up through college, like with the NIL money and stuff too, that it gives these young athletes a chance to really earn some money. And for women's sports specifically, the financial side of it has always been the hardship they face. The lack of talent, there's never been a lack of talent issue or anything like that. And there's always hockey fans out there, but you're getting more hockey fans now. You're getting these girls a chance to make some money doing what they love, and it allows them to devote more time to hone their craft and play their game and provide a more exciting product to us fans. So this is a win from all sides, from any angle that you look at it. Again, I know a lot of people in Detroit are pretty pissed that they didn't get a team after how well they showed out for the takeovers. But I mean, I'm sure before too long, Detroit will have a team, Pittsburgh will have a team, Chicago will have a team. If this league continues to develop, I can't imagine, just based on the geography, I would assume Winnipeg eventually ends up with a team. So we're not too far away. They just got to keep going at it. And again, as the league grows more, I'm sure we'll get a couple Alberta teams. Calgary and Edmonton make perfect sense. They already got great arenas there. So, they'll support their markets as well. So I think it's just a matter of time, but this is definitely a step in the right direction.
I think eventually it's going to get to a point, as long as the league remains well-maintained and well-run, that it'll get to a point where you see pretty much every city that has an NHL team will have a PWHL team, and then things will get to a point where you'll hear people having hockey conversations in public about a team, and you'll be like, oh, are you talking NHL or PWHL? I think that's the future of the PWHL. I think it's going to become big, and ultimately, I think that's what we all want to see.
Yep, I would agree with that.
Yep.
One other thing before we get to the Blue Jackets corner, I want to talk about. Cal Clutterbuck retires from the NHL now. I believe, 15 seasons or whatever, 16 seasons. Retires as the NHL's all-time hit leader, playing a few seasons in Minnesota and playing the majority of his career on Long Island. So, congrats, Cal. Just that style of hockey, even though it's an older mindset of playing a game, that tough nose, hit everything you can kind of mindset. It's an older play style, but guys that play like that usually don't have as good a shelf life as your body breaks down over time. But his withstood the test of time. He gets to ride off into the sunset on his own terms. And again, beloved on Long Island all those years. So part of one of the most effective fourth lines in hockey for, at least half a decade with Cizikas and Martin. So, just a great career. Again, tough way to make a good living, but he did it. And again, he gets to go out on his own terms. He's not being cut on a PTO and kind of fading away into the distance. He goes out on his terms, and who knows what's left on the island of that line, because it looks like Matt Martin is probably on his way out too. So that just leaves Casey Cizikas there. So might be time for an identity change a little bit on the island. But again, a guy with Clutterbuck who, plays that fun physical style of hockey and gets to
really knows how to get under people's skin too.
Oh, he's irritating shit. Yeah, I'm glad he's retired.
Yeah, I would say he's got that rat mentality for sure, but I wouldn't quite call him a rat because he wasn't really dirty. He was just physical. But like you said, he's doing it on his own terms. He kind of gets to ride off into the sunset. So, I've never quote unquote been a fan of his, but I respect the guy, and it's cool to see him go out on his own terms. Instead of, there's the poor old man that we have to let go because he just won't fucking give up. So it's nice to see it go the way it's going. Brian's having some snacks.
Yeah, I'm not having lunch today, so I just have what are these? The little Austin,
Brian's like an entire birthday cake.
No, the Austin little cracker packs. Crackers with the cheese filling. Yeah,
my man.
So my wife's a big fan of these, so they're always in the house, and you better fucking believe I'm eating them.
Hell yeah, man. She's got good taste.
All right, so now we'll do our quote-unquote season-ending Blue Jackets corner, because I don't think we'll talk much about them until We know the results of the draft lottery, which based on them missing the playoffs by a point or whatever, they're not going to win the draft lottery more than likely. So
Correct.
we probably won't talk much on them until the draft. But let's focus on the positives here, because we know what the negatives were going into this season. We knew what they were up against, but the team put together a fantastic season still. Jet Greaves finishes the year with an incredible run that almost propels him into the playoffs. Zach Werenski is nominated for the King Clancy Memorial Trophy, which for on ice and off ice leadership, I think he should be a lock for that, given everything that the Jackets endured this season between Johnny's passing plus all the injuries and the fact that they were expected to be bottom of the conference and they were literally one or 2 points away from making the playoffs. So I think he's going to probably get Norris consideration. I think he should win the Norris. He did have a great year. He's going to get MVP consideration, although it would be unfair to give it to him. There are more deserving guys, but you look at that and you look at Adam Fantilli getting to 30 goals before Leo Carlsson and Connor Bedard, who were both drafted right before him. He had a great season. I've been tooting his horn all season saying, look, this guy in a couple of years is going to be one of the most dominant forces in the league. And I truly believe it. I really do. And so for the Jackets, not only does Fantilli have a great productive season, but the team as a whole scores 267 goals this year. They set a franchise record for most goals scored in the season. Unfortunately, that was matched by allowing 267 goals against, but that just further highlights how bad the goaltending was and how much it needs to be addressed this offseason. I think with the way Jet finished the year, he's your guy to start next season, but after seeing how he played for them this year, I think he had 6 or 7 wins on the season for them in 10 or 11 games. He was unbelievable. So it sounds like this will probably be the end for Elvis here as the starter. And you just wonder, boy, if Jet had a few more games this year, would we be talking about a Washington and Columbus series instead?
I absolutely think so. First of all, we live in Cleveland. I'm a season ticket holder for the Monsters, the AHL affiliate.
Yeah, I'm wearing a Monster shirt
of
right
the Blue
now,
Jackets.
too.
You are wearing a Monster shirt. I've been saying it all year that Jet should be in Columbus. And I'm telling you right now, for all of our friends that are our fellow Monsters fans that listen to our show, because I know there's quite a few of them, we have seen the end after these playoffs end for Cleveland. We have seen the end of Jet Greaves in Cleveland. I guarantee he will be on Columbus next year. He is the future of goaltending for Columbus. Every time he goes up to the NHL, he holds his own and proves why he belongs there. I'm just glad that Kristen and I were able to get a picture with him and get him to sign a couple things before he ends up making a good name for himself. But super nice guy, works hard. Just fun to watch. He does love the game. I didn't want to be
Phil Kessel.
Yeah, Phil Kessel. But he definitely belongs in Columbus, and I think he is the future for goaltending. They still need to figure out a backup situation because Tarasov sucks and Elvis is too inconsistent in my book. The good thing about Elvis is when he is on, he's dialed in, but it's either brick wall or pure shit. So there's no in between, and you want to at least have that in between for a backup. As far as Zach Werenski goes, I think if the Jackets made the playoffs, he was a lock for the MVP. I just don't see how he wouldn't be. He was so essential to this Blue Jackets season this year, and I'm still kind of in shock at the season they had. Nobody expected them to come out and have the season they had. And I know when unfortunate, tragic events like the passing of Johnny happen, teams in all sports thrive off of shit like that. They feed off the energy that comes from it. They all band together. I don't want to say it's fairy tale, but it's a very common thing. They thrive off of shit like that because it builds camaraderie in the long run. And I also have to give major props to Dean Evison. He said as long as he's head coach there, Johnny's locker will remain untouched. So I just think that speaks volume as to the kind of impact Johnny had on not just the organization, but the game of hockey. And number 2, to the kind of man that Dean Evison is. I'm really happy with the results we got out of Dean Evison in his first year as head coach of Columbus. I've never been a fan of him as a coach, but watching him coach this year, he truly, truly cares about his players, and the outcome of what they put on the ice. I mean, it's like watching a fan behind the bench, essentially. He is invested in this team, and I think given the right amount of good goaltending, and if Dean Evason can remain the kind of coach he has been this season, I think the Columbus Blue Jackets have a very bright future.
I think so too. I want to talk real quick. We're going to go item by item here, though, because I do want to dig a little more into these. First of all, the goaltending. They're going to have an interesting choice to make because, okay, so Daniil Tarasov is an RFA now at the end of the season. So they got to decide. I assume you let him walk because unless you find a way to trade Elvis, you're married to that contract. Excuse me, for 2 more seasons. And it just, with a no trade clause, I think it's a 10-team no trade list. So there are teams he can go to in a trade. But if the 22 other teams that aren't on his list don't want him, then he's kind of boned. So, or the Jackets are kind of boned. So I think Jet is probably the mainstay next year, but you're not carrying 3 goalies all year when 2 of them aren't good anyways. Or one of them is for sure not good with Tarasov, and Elvis is too inconsistent. So they're going to have a big decision to make there. The other issue that they're faced financially is just with a lot of guys expiring. Luke Cunning's up, Sean Corrali's up, Christian Fischer's up, Justin Danforth is up, JVR is up, Kevin LeBanc is up, Ivan Provorov's up, Dante Fabro, Jordan Harris, Jack Johnson, who's probably going to retire, honestly, is up. But there's going to be a little bit of turnover on the roster. You don't probably re-sign all these guys. Unless nobody offers him money, I think Sean Corrali goes elsewhere. If he can find more money. He's 32. He's probably got a couple good years left. If he can squeak out some more money with the cap going up, wouldn't be surprised to see him go. Luke Cunnin, I would re-sign him. He's still young. He can play a good bottom 6 role. Christian Fischer, kind of the same boat. I don't know there's too much value there. That there are other Christian Fischers out there that you can get, and same with Justin Danforth. But the reality is that they're not going to be coming back with the same look next season. You're going to have a new number 1 goalie, and does Provorov stay or go? The fact that they haven't extended him yet concerns me because does he want to stay? I think Fabro's a guy they should look at re-signing. He was great for them down the stretch. You can probably get him at a low cost and just tell, with the premise of, hey, you don't have to worry about moving or trying out for any teams. You can just take a job with us for, a slight bump in pay in either direction, depending on what they think of him. But there's room there, but this team's going to have big turnover. But the big changes is going to be in that. It's how they handle moving Elvis if they can. If they can move Elvis, a lot of this changes. But you have to be smart with your money because Boone Jenner is going to be up after next season, and Cole Sillinger's up after next season. Yegor Chinakov's up after next season. Adam Fantilli is up after next season. So there are going to be guys that are going to be due for some big fucking paydays here, and you can't. And they're going to be in a tough spot just because of this with Elvis. So if they can move that contract plus the cap going up, I think it helps them a lot. But it'll be just kind of interesting to see how they go. But it does seem like Jet's the obvious choice for the number 1 goalie regardless.
I've been saying it all season that Jet should have been in Columbus this year, but I don't necessarily disagree with them letting him develop a little bit more this year in Columbus. I do think ultimately that worked out well for him, and he definitely got his workout because Cleveland iced a shit team in front of him this year, and I don't know how they squeaked into the playoffs and now just somehow knocked out the Marlies and are moving on to the second round. So maybe they're waking up. But it's also worth noting the Monsters have not only Jet Greaves back right now, but they also have Denton Mateychuk back, and he's been good for them since he's been back down in Cleveland. And again, next year, Denton Mateychuk, you won't see him in Cleveland. He'll be on Columbus.
I would say ditto for Luca Del Bel Belluz too. I got to imagine he's getting looks at the big club all next year.
I don't see a world where Del Bel Belluz isn't on Columbus. I think he proved himself this year in the time he spent up there. He was a point a game guy when he was up there. I'm not saying he's going to carry that consistency throughout his whole career, but I'm just saying he's shown he deserves to be in the show. Give him his shot. So I think that's one of the good things Columbus has going is that they have the last several years had a good farm system.
Yeah, I was going to say, for what it's worth, I mentioned there will be a lot of turnover. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. It just means the roster construction is going to be different. So even though they might look better on paper next year, even there might be some growing pains still. I didn't want to say that it's a means of, they're going to suck next year. It's going to be a different look.
Absolutely. But again, there's still a bright future ahead if they play their cards right, and a lot of it's going to come down to finances. And I know there's people out there that are probably thinking, well, this is a team that sells out every home game. Correct, but they're still a small market team as far as TV goes. They're not, this isn't the New York Rangers. They don't have the Madison Square Garden network or things like that. This is a small market team in business terms. So they're not a cash heavy team. So they have to be smarter with their finances and play their cards right. And keep in mind, you have a good farm system, and it's okay to bring guys up and give them a chance, especially because they're not quite a contender yet. So you still have a little bit more wiggle room to kind of play around and see what you can put together on the ice.
Yeah, definitely. I think it'll be interesting to see how they handle things, but I just think the most pressing issue still is they got to figure out a way to move Elvis out. I know the cap's going up, and honestly, I should have probably prefaced this by saying the Jackets are going to have a shit load of cap space going into this offseason. I mean, they're going to have the roster they have. They're probably going to have $25 to $30 million in cap space. Right now, Puckpedia shows them with $18 million on the in cap space with what they have in the books now. So we talk about big turnover. I mean, they could, in a perfect world for them, they could go out, they could sign like a Mitch Marner in this offseason and absolutely change the way this team looks overnight. I mean, you could go out and just get somebody like that and just they're literally in a spot they could, and not that you should do this with Mitch Marner, but they could go out and throw league max at him and still have $10 million in cap space. I mean, it's
Correct.
it's that crazy. Now, don't do that, but yeah. But they're going to have a lot of room. And look, Columbus kind of put themselves on the map this year with everything that happened. They showed it's a group with a lot of heart. They showed it's a group with a really deep-rooted fan base, and it's a nice city, Columbus. It's a really nice city, and so I think that there's a chance there that they can attract some big-name free agents just off of that alone. And we don't have the free agent class in front of us right now. I just know it's highlighted by Mitch Marner, but there's a chance they could turn this team over the offseason into a really big team. And now I say that with some caution after what Nashville just did last season, but there's a chance they can do something great here. It's just about how they handle it. And I think they're in good hands with Don Waddell, but I think you build something like this by having good, consistent behaviors and good practices. And a good way to start would be bringing in your goalie of the future now and finding some way somehow to dump off this goalie who's just chained to this team with this god awful contract that he can't perform up to.
Yeah, my thing is, you want to see Elvis go, but I really want to see Tarasov go, because at least I can say with Elvis, I've seen him have performances where I'm like, wow, man, he played out of his mind tonight. I can't say that once about Tarasov. He just sucked. Even when he was in Cleveland at the beginning of this year in a conditioning stint, he was terrible. He sucked. He got lit up every night. And part of that's the defense's fault in Cleveland, but at the same time, he was letting in baby shit soft goals. So it's hard to say who do you want as your backup, or do you find a way to let both of these guys walk if you can get a team to take on Elvis and let Tarasov bounce? Who do you go after for a backup in this situation? There's just so many different variables that go into this and that you can look into. I don't know what direction you go or what the right direction is, if there is one.
Yeah, it'll just be interesting to see what decisions they make. I also wonder next year, to mention some of the guys in the Monsters. I know obviously Del Bell Blues will be up at the big club. Matejchuk will, if they have a single brain cell, will be up at the big club. I would also imagine that we're to probably get more looks at Trey Fix-Wolansky next year, because they're going to get to a point with this guy where you got to decide if he's going to be planted in the AHL for his whole career, or if he's going to get a legitimate shake with the NHL team. He's a really gifted skater. And his size is just his ultimate downfall. What's up?
I was going to say that's going to be my opinion, is that he's just, and I know you can argue there have been small guys that have had great success in the NHL, i.e. Johnny Gaudreau. But Trey, I don't want to knock him because I absolutely love him. I've met him. Great guy, super fun hockey player to watch. Some
guys just aren't NHLers.
Exactly. And it's fair to say that the majority of people who even play professional hockey won't be in the NHL. That's how elite these guys are.
Yeah.
And he is, I will tell you, on the ice, In Cleveland, Trey Fix-Wolansky is a god among men there. I mean, you can see it, but the times he's had his shot in the NHL, he's just been there, if that makes sense. He hasn't done anything over the top to stand out or even necessarily shows that he deserves to be there as far as play goes. Now, as far as the hard work standpoint, he's a very hard worker and dedicated to what he does, but it's hard. And you don't want him to be a career AHLer because of how hard he works and how committed he is to his team. I just don't see it. Maybe not with Columbus anyway.
I don't want to dwell too much on him though.
Yeah, well, same. But I don't know because he's one of the biggest names in Cleveland, but you never really hear him talked about as far as going up to Columbus.
I think that tells you all you need to know.
Yeah.
A couple other guys I think will probably get good looks next year. I think Trey Fix-Wolansky will get a couple more looks next year, but I think they're going to get to the fork in the road and have to make their choice.
Correct. Yeah.
I think Mikhail Putia is probably going to get a couple more looks too. He's proven himself enough that I think he should be up at the big club in a bottom six role. I think Damon Hunt will probably get a few more looks as well, just given what they gave up to get him with the David Jiricek trade with Minnesota. I think he'll give a few more shots. He skates pretty well. He's got a decent shot. Plays some big minutes in Cleveland as well. So I think he's another guy that they maybe look at as well. But it'll largely hinge on what they do with this free agent class. And again, those young guys that are expiring, actually, Dmitry Voronkov is up at the end of this season too, so they're going to have to pay him this offseason as well, and I have a feeling he's going to command a pretty big paycheck. I would assume he'd be in probably the $4 to $5 million range at least.
I'd say 4 to 5 is safe. But
again, Cole Sillinger up after next year. He's going to be due for a pay raise, especially being a center. Yegor Chinikov going to be due for a pretty big pay raise. Kent Johnson's up in a couple of years, and he's only making 1.8.
Oh, he's going to be due. I mean, I would argue he's due now for money.
Yeah, he's going to be making money, but the big ones for them are going to be right. The big ones that are pressing them now are going to be Fantilli, Voronkov, Chinikov, and once all the dust settles on that, then they're going to have to pay Ken Johnson too, and it'll be a lot. Plus, again, if they bring in a big free agent, that's going to suck up a lot of that money too. So I don't know what they do for their back end. As good as the team played this year, they definitely need some help back there. It can't just be Zach Werenski and Provorov doing everything. Matejchuk, obviously, I'm sure will be with the big club for all of next season. But I don't know what you're going to get left out of Eric Branson, who's good some nights and not great the others. I don't know if Provorov even stays there.
I say no
at the end of this year. And Damon Severson, if not for the cap going up, this contract I would not be crazy about. But the cap's going up so much, it seems largely inconsequential.
At least with Chinikov and Provorov, I have no particular feelings either way, whether they stay or go. I mean, your focus needs to be on having the money for Fantilli, for KJ, guys like that who are going to be due for big paydays, who are essential. I mean, as far as, no, I'm not going to go down that road because I don't want to jump the gun yet. We'll wait till the off season. I mean, it is the off season for Columbus, but I just mean in general.
All right, well, then let's talk about Zach Werenski. So, again, he's nominated already for the King Clancy Memorial Trophy. With everything the Jackets went through this year, there is no more appropriate choice. If he's not the winner of this award, just throw the trophy in the garbage and run it over with a dump truck because it's worthless.
Yeah.
But he probably should win the Norris. I don't think he should win MVP. Look, ultimately, they did not make the playoffs, and that plays a large role when you look at the effectiveness of guys like McKinnon, Makar, Kucherov. There are plenty more deserving candidates, as tough as it is to say. But I will say that as good as Makar is, I think Werenski, with the group he's a part of, with his talent level, the way he leads the charge, just as much as Makar does, just on a worse team, I think he should be either number 1 or 2 in Norris voting.
I'm with you on that 100%. Actually, I don't look, man. I mean, if it's up to me, I'm giving this guy every award in the book after the season he's had. Okay. Sorry, I'm using my wife's laptop for this right now. So, I'd give the guy every award in the book right now. But the guy is the face of the organization after this season. I would argue. give it a couple more years, I'll put Adam Fantilli up there with him as well. But he's really cemented himself and his legacy with this organization. And I think, how do I put this? I think from the standpoint of going forward, I mean, one, I have no question that this is the soon to be captain of the Columbus Blue Jackets. As far as because Boone Jenner's got, what'd you say, at the end of next season, he's gone. Well, not necessarily gone. He's up.
They're going to extend him. I can't, unless his play falls off a cliff next season. I wouldn't be surprised if he extends on July 1st, to be totally honest with you, when he's eligible.
Well, and as long as Jenner's there, obviously nobody else is going to be captain. But I mean, when he is gone, Zach Werenski is your guy, but you got to keep this guy around, man. Again, he's the face of the organization. He's got all the talent. I'll say, like, I don't want to compare him to Makar because they're two different guys, but he's got the talent of a forward and he's a defenseman.
I would say he does what Makar does, just on a scaled back version. First of all, he's not nowhere near as fast.
Correct, yes.
But he drives the offensive play, quarterbacks the power play. He's got a great shot. He's got great vision. I mean, he does everything Makar does, just at a slightly lower tier because Cale Makar is like the best defenseman ever play this fucking game. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But that's the role he plays for this. He's such a driving force. He just doesn't have McKinnon to pass the puck to all the time. So that's the difference. But they're building something good there. And to your comments about him being captain, look, sometimes the best players in a team don't end up being the captain. I mean, look at Bergeron all of those years with the Bruins. Now, Chara was very deserving of the captaincy there, but Bergeron was that team's leader through and through. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, yeah.
And so, but again, he's one of the team's leaders and he's very effective. And I think, like I said, if he doesn't win the King Clancy Memorial Trophy, not that it's any kind of career-altering trophy to win, but given the description of the award, if he doesn't win it this year, because it's leadership on and off the ice. Well, on the ice, they were shorthanded with injuries all year, plus a teammate passing, and off the ice, it's about rallying a group together with the passing of a teammate. If he does not win this trophy, I will personally drive to Las Vegas myself, throw it into a garbage, and run it over with a dump truck, because if he doesn't win it, it's a worthless fucking award. It means nothing, and I will not, again, argue with a wall if you think I'm wrong, okay? Okay.
More beautiful words have never been spoken, Brian.
Now, let's see what else here. So, Adam Fantilli, look, I have pumped this guy's tires so much, I'm surprised all four of them haven't blown up.
Yeah.
But, look, I've been saying he's going to be one of the best players in the league for years to come. And I know, there's going to be the comparisons to Bedard and Leo Carlson because they were all drafted together, but he's the first one to 30 goals. And I know that all the arguments about Bedard and Carlson are in tougher situations, but with everything that happened with this team, with Johnny being gone and again, missing your captain almost the whole season, Adam Fantilli has really stepped up in his own right. He's been a driving force for this team. He's not the leader in the room or anything like that, but this guy just seems unfazed. It doesn't seem like any moment's too big for him. He doesn't make shitty plays. He's not a liability on the ice, and he's, again, 30 goals at the age of 20. I mean, it's just so good, and I don't think it's talked about enough. And I know he only had 50-something points this year, not a lot of assists, but sometimes you have guys on your team that can just be finishers, and that's okay.
I'll say there's nothing wrong with that, but I definitely will say, yeah, you've been pumping the shit out of his tires all season, but it's 100% deserved. It's not like it's unjustified or you're just knob slobbing, like this kid. Give it a couple years and he's going to be a household name in the league. He's incredible to watch. Everybody loves him. I think that the best thing about him being so talented, he's just having fun out there, man. And that's what's fun to watch. So I think with his contract coming up, though, there's going to be, and rightfully so, people that want to take a dig at him. So be smart with your finances so you can lock him down for a while.
Yeah, I agree. And we'll see. I like I said, I trust Don Waddell to put together a good team. He put a decent team together in Carolina that's been competitive for all of these years, despite all my digs on them not being able to get over the hump. Look, he put that team together, and while it clearly hasn't been enough to win them a Stanley Cup, they've been an effective team. He knows what he's doing, and I trust that he will, but we'll have to see where it goes from here. There's just, with all the UFAs that are coming right now and all the guys that are going to be due for extensions, it'll be very fascinating to see how different this team looks when we go into training camp in September.
Big time.
All right. The last thing I want to mention too before we or the last two things I want to mention real quick. I mentioned again the team had its best offensive season in franchise history. With this group, it's kind of surprising actually. It's like, holy cow, I can't believe these were the guys that did it, but they looked great. And again, it just highlights the need for getting reliable goaltending. And part of that is again building a more solid, bona fide defense core. It's can't just be Zach and Ivan against the world. You got to have 3 pairs you can roll and 2 that you can really fucking lean on. And that's what the best teams in the league do. But you have to have a goalie that can stop a beach ball. And other than for a few games this year, that wasn't Elvis and it certainly wasn't Tarasov. So I just can't wait to see what they do with this goalie situation because it's driving me nuts every time I look at them on Puckpedia.
You cut out for the second half. I don't think you actually cut out, but you cut out on my end.
Oh, well, we won't dwell too much on that because we did a whole section on Jet and goaltending. But the last thing I want to just say, you mentioned Dean and the job he's done with the team this year. He's actually going to get the nod as the head coach for Canada at the Men's World Championships. So those are getting started very soon here, actually. And so it'll be interesting to see the team. Canada actually is probably going to put together a really good team here with the Penguins missing the playoffs. It sounds like Sid's going over. It sounds like Connor Bedard's going over. Like it sounds like they're going to try and put together a pretty solid group here, so I won't be surprised if Canada walks away with a world championship gold.
Give them 3 more days, and McDavid will be heading over too.
I think it was 2015 or whatever. The Penguins got bounced in round 1, and the Flyers got bounced in round 1 or missed the playoffs, and their first 2 centers and the Bruins missed the playoffs. I think they had Bergeron, Marchand, Crosby, and Giroux at the World Championships. Yeah. I'm like, they practically put together an Olympic team. And
who's playing in the playoffs then?
Yeah. Well, and really, I mean, we joke about the Men's World Championships because it's essentially the guys that didn't make the playoffs, and it's like a lot of the best men's hockey players are still in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So
yeah,
it's never taken as seriously like as the Women's World Championships, where all of the best players are already there. Right. So I think that the Men's World Championships kind of lack that level of prestige. But again, for Dean, just to even be considered for this and then to get picked to do it. And again, he's going to be coaching some really good fucking players. Yeah. So to even have a chance to do this is exciting. And I can't wait to see what he does with it'll be interesting to see how he manages a team with players that are that talented. And again, you talk about if the Oilers get bounced in the playoffs, if McDavid goes over to plays the World Championships with Crosby, and if the Penguins or if the Sens get knocked off, Giroux could go over there again. Like there's a lot of good guys that could go over and play in this tournament this year because of how the playoffs have shaped up. So I'll be interested to see what Dean does with this group. But again, he caps off a great season. I think he should get consideration for the Jack Adams. I don't think he should win it. Again, the Jackets missing the playoffs plays a large role in that, especially with how good Carberry was with the Caps this year and how good Arneal was with the Jets. Like there are guys that have been deserving, and you think of a guy who's just a good coach in general, like a John Cooper or Paul Maurice, or there's a lot of guys that are deserving of it, but I think Dean Evison should definitely be on that list as well. And once again, good that he gets the nod for Canada.
Yeah, I think it's well deserved. And again, he did an outstanding job with Columbus this year, a team that nobody thought would be where they were come season's end. So obviously, I
think we both had them last in the conference in our season previews.
We did. I know I had them bottom 3 for sure.
If not them, then no, I didn't have the Sabres down there because I think between them, Detroit, and Ottawa, I was thinking one of them would be really good. And so I think I had Montreal and Columbus at the bottom of the conference, and instead they were neck and neck for the final playoff spot. And it should have been Columbus because I don't like the Habs.
Same. But yeah, you know what? We're real close to the Caps putting the Habs right back where they belong. So, and yes, that was a personal dig at the Habs because I can't stand your team or your fans.
I wasn't going to go that far with it. But
I will. I do
wish the Jackets would have been in. So, but again, it's just goofy how silly this game is. I mean, nobody would have batted an eye at the start of the season if you had Columbus and Montreal last in the East and you had the Predators having the best record in the league. Instead, Montreal and Columbus fight for the final playoff spot, and there's a chance the Nashville Predators win the draft lottery and pick first overall. That blows my mind. Also, listen to me. If the Predators win the draft lottery, hold the fuck on.
Yeah, dude. He said, listen to me.
Dude, if them or like the Bruins or somebody wins the draft lottery, fuck.
If the Bruins win the draft lottery, you have nothing to worry about because they draft like shit. So no
That is
worries.
true. That's a good point. And them in Chicago both. I mean, what's
yeah.
funny is we talked about all the progress that San Jose made this season and Chicago to a far less extent, but they're further along in the build than they were to start the year. There's a chance either of those two could win the draft lottery again. I mean, they're both going to be picking top 5, I think, either way, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
But dude, if the Bruins or if the Nashville Predators win the draft lottery with this roster and come out, and they're just going to melt the league next year. I think,
dude,
listen, they need a fucking coach. They need a coach too. Andrew Burnett is not the guy. And we're going to talk about
that all season, dude.
We're going to talk about that this offseason. Trust me.
Look, okay, here's the thing. First of all, the fact that I even just had to hear the words, if Nashville wins the draft lottery, come out of your mouth. If you would have told me 6 months ago at the beginning of the fucking season, you were going to say those words to me in April, I would have told you to go to hell. Yeah. Not a fucking chance. And I just ripped my headphone cord out, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, dude, just fucking wild. I just I keep thinking back to all of our off-season predictions for this year. And I'm just like, dude, I don't think we were fucking right about anything.
I think for just to entertain ourselves, if nothing else, I think we both need to have some homework here and go back and listen to our season previews. And we need to write down all of our predictions from the start of the season and just see how much we swung and missed. Because I think of stuff like obviously Nashville's the big one that everybody.
I got a Ben Sheets batting average right now.
But that's a deep reference if you get that one.
Yes, sir.
But you look at the Columbus and Montreal predictions, the Washington prediction, the Nashville prediction. I think a lot of people might have thought more of Chicago. I didn't think that highly of them, but a lot of people might have thought more of the Blackhawks going into this year. Even Utah with bringing in Sergachev. Like there was. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff I think we were just way wrong about. I mean, the obvious ones we were right about, like Dallas was sick. Colorado fixed their goaltending and they were sick as we all expected. Like some of those were so obvious nobody could have got them wrong. I mean, if a year ago or 6 months ago you would have said, look, this season was a tire fire for the Predators. After the initial shock wore off, I could have seen the path with the bad coaching that they have. If you would have said, look, the Preds suck and Andrew Burnett's a bad coach, I would have been like, yeah, I guess I hadn't considered that. But like if we got to the end of the season and like the Stars were in last or the Jets or Colorado, if one of them was in last, I would have been like, okay, this is really weird. And it's funny because we were almost headed that way with Colorado with how bad they were to start the year. I don't know if that they were ever out of the playoff spot, but boy, were they just hanging on for dear life until December.
Yeah, you'll have that when you fix your goaltending issues. But I always knew Andrew Burnett wasn't a great coach because I had already dealt with him in the Panthers. And I don't care what anybody says. That team he coached was a Stanley Cup caliber team, and they didn't do shit with him, and that's fine. But that team was still stacked.
Yeah,
I mean, most of those guys that were on that team were on the Stanley Cup winning team. So that's where coaching comes into play, but we won't get into that now.
I would say the big caveat to that though is that he leaves and then they get Matthew Tkachuk and the complexion of the entire team
and Paul Maurice.
Yeah, like two moves that a lot of Panthers fans, yourself included, did not like.
Pissed.
And it's just crazy. But again, that shows how meaningless a lot of these predictions can be because these guys in the room know their teams better than anybody else. No matter what anybody says, it's just the reality of it. There's a reason they're pros and that we're not. But I'm telling you, just some of these predictions, I do think just to entertain ourselves in the next episode. I mean, when we do our next episode, we'll know the results of this first round. So we'll only have 4 series to preview for round 2. So we'll do those, and then we'll go back and look at our preseason predictions as we gear up for that, because it would be fascinating to see just how wrong we were. Because I know we swung and missed hard on a lot of stuff.
We did, but we are hitting the 2-hour mark now on this show, and so those of you that are still with us on this episode, God bless you. But I think to quote John Taffer, I think it's about time for us to shut it the fuck down.
I think so. Well, it's funny you say that. That was the last thing I had on my notes was just the stuff in the Blue Jackets corner. So we're done with that, and I think that means it's time for us to do our homework and get out of here for now.
I agree. So if you're not already, make sure you follow us on social media, on Facebook, Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast, and on Instagram at Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast. You can find us on TikTok at Fresh Ice Pod. If you want to send us a question, or if you just want to comment on something that we talked about during any of our episodes, doesn't matter if it was 10 episodes ago. And if you have something you want to say to us, you can send us an email. You can email us in one of two places. The first one is freshicehockeypodcast@gmail.com. And the second one is contact@freshicehockeypodcast.com. Other than that, I think that's about all we have. Shout out, as always, to our boys over at Xenopucks. Great company, great product. Make sure you head over to xenopucks.com and check them out. If you're looking for an off-ice practice puck, there is not a better one out there on the market, I promise you. Brian, you got anything else to add, my man?
Just a gentle reminder. Well, depending on when these series wrap up, we'll either be back next Sunday or next Monday. If they can all wrap up by Saturday night, we'll be back next Sunday. If not, we'll do something next. We'll record next Monday night. Either way, though, the Game 7 slates are all set for Saturday, Sunday. So I assume at least one of these will go 7, and we'll have to wait till Monday to do our next show. But either way, we're getting into the thick of it now. It's sad that the season is starting to, head towards its twilight. But these are the most exciting games, so I can't wait for it.
Everybody have a great week. Enjoy the rest of the first round, and we will talk to you sometime early next week. Take care and comb your hair.